Christian slaves and employees should obey the instructions that they're given by their boss. Now, we must understand that this obedience has a caveat. There are certain guidelines, certain parameters that we should follow as we obey our employers. First of all, what they ask us to do cannot be immoral. The Hebrew midwives, think about this, back in Egypt, what did the Hebrew midwives do? They were told to take the Hebrew boys and kill them, throw them in the Nile. But what did they do? They hid them because that was immoral. And you think that God's like, well, they didn't obey their bosses, so they're, No. He loved it. He blessed them because of it. In fact, he blessed them so much they had their own children. Isn't that amazing? Because they saved the children. Just as there are some Christian doctors and nurses who will not do abortions today. It can be idolatrous. In Babylon, the young Jewish exiles, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they did not bow. They did not do something that was idolatrous. They would not worship the king. So they were thrown into the fiery furnace in Daniel 3. And I think for us, that's something important because I don't think that we should actually participate in multi-faith services. Doesn't mean I can't go to a mosque with a friend of mine and just sit there and pray to God, but I certainly don't pray to Allah. And I don't meditate the way they want us to meditate in a Buddhist temple or in I avoid a lot of the stuff, Eastern mysticism things, because it's not right. And they say, well, it's just, it's just yoga. But you must understand the basis of it. The basis of it is all about worship of the entities. So don't do it. Don't do it if it's idolatrous. And the next thing is not suppressing the gospel. The apostles would not obey the instructions of the Sanhedrin. The Sanhedrin told them, okay, we're going to let you go. We're going to beat you. We're going to let you go. But you must not say the name of Jesus anymore. And they're like, well, if we're going to obey you or obey God, I think I'll obey God. And we have to take that same stand in our work. We cannot agree to be silenced from speaking about Jesus Christ, especially if it's hindering our fulfillment of the duties in which we're employed. Now, we can be wisely quiet. We've got to be gentle as doves and wise as serpents. But if my employer comes to me and says, you must not speak the name of Jesus while you're on our property, I think it's time for me to find a new employment. It must not suppress the gospel. And within these principles, though, we can obey our employers because all authority has been appointed by God. God has put everybody in authority. Yes, God has put Joe Biden in authority, and we must listen to him until he goes outside of any of these parameters. If our employers or the government threaten to punish our faithful witness, then we are free to witness and then accept the punishment or seek legal redress, as Paul did in appealing to Roman law. When Paul was being chastised and basically the mob was coming at him, what did he do? He says, I'm a Roman citizen and I appeal to Caesar. He had every right to do that. And we have every right to defend ourselves in court based upon the laws of our land. But if they come to us and say, you must not share the gospel, I'm sorry, I have to. Arrest me. Go ahead. We'll fight it out in court. I know. That's a hard place to be because we enjoy our freedom, right? I don't want to be arrested. I got family to think of. But see, who do I trust? Do I trust myself and my employment, or do I trust God? I have to trust God. I think we're going to come down to this point where we have to make this decision. Are we going to follow the world, or are we going to follow Christ? Christians must not refuse obedience to our bosses merely because we're tired, we feel unfairly treated or demeaned, for we do our work not for them, but for Jesus, who suffered much worse than we're ever going to suffer. We must obey with respect, with reverence, with fear and reverence, and with sincerity before God. That's what it's saying in verse 5. So in other words, our earthly masters can be utterly undeserving. They may not deserve our respect. They may not deserve our obedience, but that doesn't matter because you need to be obedient to them because you're being obedient to Christ in the process. It's like raising kids. I always come back to this. It's like raising kids. I don't want my kids to do what I ask them to do because they're afraid of me. I want them to do what I ask them to do because they love me. And that doesn't mean I let them get away with anything either. In fact, I'll be honest with you, I'm tougher on them than Beth is. If I'm feeling tired, I don't want to do it, I say, go ask your mother, because I know what she's going to say. She's going to say yes. Because she's compassionate, and I'm not. I haven't been around them all day. They haven't been bothering me all day, and I'm a little tougher on them sometimes. And believe me, there are a lot of things she tells them no that I would say yes to. But we don't do things just because somebody deserves it. We do it because of Christ.